मंगलाचरण। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखिलरसामृतमूर्ति प्रसृमररुचिरुद्धतारकापालि कलितश्यामा ललितो राधाप्रेयान् विभुर्जयति। So continuing the commentary by Jiva Goswami on the shloka 1111, अन्याभिलाषिता शून्यं ज्ञानकर्माद्यनावृतम् आनुकूल्येन कृष्णानुशीलनं भक्तिरुत्तमा. The definition or the characteristic of pure bhakti was given here. Continuing the commentary, we have described and discussed the word Krishnanushilanam. Okay. Now, Jiva Goswami explains the word Anukulyena, that is just before Krishnanushilanam. तत्र भक्तिमात्रत्वसिद्ध्यर्थं विशेषणम् आनुकूल्येन इति. Okay. प्रातिकूल्ये भक्तित्वा प्रसिद्धे आनुकूल्यं च अस्मिन् उद्देश्याय श्रीकृष्णाय रोचमाना प्रवृत्तिः। प्रातिकूल्यं तु तद्विपरीतं ज्ञेयम्। तृतीया च इयं विशेषणे एव न तु उपलक्षणे। ततश्च यथा शस्त्रिणः समानय इत्युक्ते शस्त्राणामपि समानयनं सज्जते, तथा आनुकूल्यस्यापि भक्तित्वविधानं न तु शस्त्रिणो भोजय इत्यत्र शस्त्राणाम् अभोजनवत् तद् अविधानम्. Okay. So now Jiva Goswami is explaining the word anukulyam in the shloka. Sri Rupa Goswami, he says, has used the word anukulyam in order to indicate and define bhakti itself. Bhakti matratva siddhyartham visheshanam anukulyam. Anukulyena is the adjective of the action of Krishnanushilanam. Okay. So, in order to establish bhakti itself, he has used the word anukulyena in the sense of the adjective of Krishnanushilanam. So it means it is a kriya visheshanam. It is an adverb of the act of constant application in relation with Shri Krishna. What is anukulyena? It means favorably serving Krishna, or favorably the act of constant application in relation with Krishna favorably. Anukulyena becomes the adverb of that action. Constant application in relation to Krishna is Krishnanushilanam, and anukulyena means favorably. It defines bhakti itself, anukulyena. And that is because pratikulye bhaktitva aprasiddhe. An act that is done unfavorably is never known as bhakti, is never understood as bhakti or devotion. Devotion is always in the sense of favorable, of being favorable to the person whom you are serving, or the person in relation with whom you are acting. Okay. So, anukulyam, what is that anukulyam? Anukulyam cha asmin uddeshyaya Shri Krishnaya rojamana pravritti. It is an pravritti, it is a functioning, or it is a tendency which is favorable for Shri Krishna, or the desire to please Krishna. The desire to please Krishna is called anukulyam, or favorability. What is favorability to Krishna? It means the desire to please Krishna. That is Anukulya. Intention to please Krishna. Okay. Attitude to please Krishna. That is Anukulya. Pratikulyam. What is Pratikulyam? It is opposite of Anukulyam. Pratikulyam tu tad viparitam chayam. Pratikulyam should be understood as opposite of Anukulyam. It means the tendency to displease Krishna, the tendency to cause harm to Krishna. That is Pratikulyam, being against Krishna. And this word Anukulyena is in the Tritiya Vibhakti, the third Vibhakti in the Sanskrit language. The third Vibhakti is used for Anukulya in the sense of Visheshanam only in the sense of it being the adjective of the word Krishnanushilan. It is a loose translation of Visheshanam as adjective. Visheshanam, it means the modifier, the qualifier. Anukulyam, the third Vibhakti there, Anukulyena, is used in the sense of the qualifier of the act of constant application with regard to Krishna. It is not used in the sense of upalakshanam, natu upalakshane. Okay. So there is a difference he is bringing up between Visheshanam and upalakshanam. So let me give you some idea of what is Visheshanam and upalakshanam. So suppose somebody is coming new to the city in which you are living, and somebody has the address. So he is asking you, where is the house of Devadatta? He wants to go to the house of Devadatta, and Devadatta happens to be your neighbor. Somewhere in the neighborhood, his house is there. So when he comes to you to ask for the house of Devadatta, if you say, the house which is the third house from this house, the house that is third after this house is Devadatta's house, that becomes Visheshanam. Devadatta's house is the third house. The third house from this house is Devadatta's house. So you are describing the house of Devadatta as the third house from your house, from this house. Okay. This will never change. His house will always be the third house from your house. Okay. So if suppose instead of that description of Devadatta's house, you give another description of his house. Devadatta's house is that house on which that crow is sitting. So a crow happens to be sitting on the house of Devadatta when this guy asked you about his house. So you describe the house of Devadatta as being that house on which that crow is sitting, is standing. Now, describing Devadatta's house as that house on which the crow is standing is an upalakshana of the house of Devadatta. It is not a Visheshanam, because after 1 second that crow may fly away from that house. But because that guy has seen that house, even after the crow has flown away from that house, he knows that it was the house on which the crow was standing. So that is the house of Devadatta. So upalakshana is a description of a thing that is not the swarupa lakshana of that thing. You are describing a particular thing by something that is not an inherent characteristic of that thing. Devadatta's house has actually no fixed relationship with that crow. The crow just came and sat on his house for that time only. Okay. So here, Sri Jiva Goswami is saying that Anukulyena, third vibhakti is there here. in the sense of Visheshanam and not in the sense of Upalakshanam of Krishnanushilam. So Krishnanushilanam has this description. What is Krishnanushilanam? Krishnanushilanam is Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. So if you are asking where is Devadatta's house? Devadatta's house is the third house from this house. That is Visheshanam. So in the same way, the description of Krishnanushilanam as being Anukulyena. So Anukulyena becomes the Visheshanam of Krishnanushilanam. Favorability becomes the Visheshanam of constant application in relationship with Krishna. Favorability is not an Upalakshana for constant application in relation with Krishna. It is not a temporary characteristic or it is not a marginal characteristic of constant application in relation with Krishna. Favorability, an intention to please Krishna, is an inherent characteristic of constant application in relation with Krishna. Okay? Any questions someone has here? Any doubts? No question? Okay.
Yeah, Aresh, thank you for explaining about these two categories, the
Yes.
Upalakshan and Visheshan. So maybe this might come in future sessions. I don't know. Maybe in the future verses, but let's say at times when we are not favorable, how should
What is
a
not favorable?
devotee? At times when one's mind and body is not favorable for Krishna Bhakti, then how should then deal in that scenario?
Well, then one can take up various means. The best means is to put oneself in the association of those who have such favorable attitude for Krishna. So hearing from them and serving them will make you also inclined in the same way favorably to Krishna. That is the best way. So other means also might be there. So yes, we are all sadhakas. We are not always in that state of being favorable to Krishna. But that is the practice we have to do. Always be favorable to Krishna. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else has a question? Okay. So let's move ahead. So Jiva Goswami explains it further, the same point. Tatascha yatha shastrinah samanaya ityukte shastranamapi samanayanam prasajyate. For example, yatha, when it is said, bring the weapon bearers, shastrina. Okay. Bring the weapon bearers if that instruction is given to someone, if the king gives the instruction, bring the weapon bearers. So then, along with the weapon bearers, the weapons are also brought. Okay. Weapon bearers means they who hold weapons with them. They have weapons with them. So weapons are also being brought when the weapon bearers are being brought. Okay. So that is the meaning of Visheshanam. Bring the weapon bearers. Weapon is the Visheshanam of the weapon bearers. So if you say bring the weapon bearers.
Rachi, I think a better example would be in the modern sense. I know this document is very old and you're reading what is said, but
Yes.
the explanation today would be prepare the army. When the president says prepare the army, you're not just talking about the people, you're talking about the guns, the bombs,
Yes,
everything
exactly.
that goes with it.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
Yes, definitely.
So, or a better example that I can use is, a wedding has been arranged. So, prepare the wedding hall. When you say prepare the wedding hall, you need to then start thinking about how many cooks do you need, what are the things you need to get for the wedding. how many priests are you going to have for the yajna? All those things needs to be prepared.
Sure, sure. Yeah, many examples are there which could be
Many
given.
examples are there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to relate this to what you said before about Krishna. So when you say uh, bhakti, how does bhakti relate to this? Bhakti is basically a subcomponent of worshipping Krishna. So the
Well,
main element is service to Krishna, right? So
no,
how
no.
do I service Krishna?
Bhakti is not a
I'm just asking.
subcomponent. Is not a subcomponent of
It's not a
worshiping.
subcomponent.
No, bhakti is the main thing which you should do. And the thing is that he is defining bhakti as constant application related to Krishna. That is Krishna bhakti. And
What is
then
pleasing to Krishna? Doing what is pleasing to Krishna.
so then he is refining
Right.
that definition by the word favorability, anukulyena.
Favorability. Okay.
So that
Okay.
application in relation to Krishna, which is favorable to Krishna, is bhakti. And this favorability is not a side component of bhakti. It is the principal component, or the swarupa lakshana, the nature of bhakti itself.
Okay. So what is pleasing to Krishna is bhakti. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
So just as you say, Shastrina samanaya, bring the weapon bearers. The weapon, this word weapon, is qualifying the word weapon bearers. In that sense, it is the swarupa lakshana of the weapon bearer. It is a visheshanam of weapon bearer. It is not an upalakshana. It is not a marginal characteristic of weapon bearer. Okay. So when the weapon bearers are told, like when the instruction is given, bring the weapon bearers, it is understood that the weapons will also be brought along with the weapon bearers. Okay. Tatha anukulyasyapi bhaktitva vidhanam. In the same way, anukulyam, favorability, is also said to be bhakti itself. Favorability to Krishna is also Krishna bhakti. So it is included in the definition. The main characteristic, Swarupa Lakshana of bhakti, of Krishna bhakti, is Anukulyena Krishnanushīlanam, is the main definition of bhakti, Swarupa Lakshana of bhakti, or Uttama bhakti. Okay. न तो शस्त्रिणो भोजय इत्यत्र शस्त्राणाम् अभोजनवत् तत् अविधानम्. Anukulyam is not an upalakshana of bhakti, just like in the instruction. If the king gives the instruction, instead of shastrina samanaya, instead of bring the weapon bearers, if he instructs, feed the weapon bearers, feed them. So feed the weapon bearers. When this instruction is given, only the bearers of the weapons are fed the food. The weapons themselves are not fed any food. The weapons cannot eat anything. Okay. So in that instruction, weapon, in the word weapon bearers, becomes the upalakshana, becomes the marginal characteristic of the weapon bearers. Because the instruction to feed does not particularly apply to feeding the weapons. It applies to those who are carrying the weapons. They may or may not carry the weapons after some time. That is immaterial. So they are bearing the weapons. So I want you to feed them. So you understand how weapon here in this instruction becomes the upalakshana, becomes the marginal characteristic of the instruction to feed the weapon bearers. Okay. The weapons are not fed. Only the bearers of the weapons are fed the food. Okay. So this is the upalakshana idea. So anukulya is not an upalakshanam for Krishnanushīlanam. You should not understand it to be a marginal characteristic of Krishnanushīlanam, just like in the instruction, shastrina bhojaya, feed the weapon bearers. Favorability is not a marginal characteristic as it is, as the weapons are in the instruction, feed the weapon bearers. ठीक है. Favorability is the main characteristic, the inherent characteristic of Krishna Bhakti. Any questions or doubts here? Okay. So then, somebody may ask a question. Nanu anukulyam bhaktiriti eva asta. So then, why not just say anukulyam itself is bhakti? Favorability itself is bhakti for Krishna. Okay. ततश्च, and then raja ayam gacchati ityatra rajapadena tat parikaranam grahanam syad satyam tathapi. So then the question is that the doubt is presented that let favorability itself be called bhakti. Why you say Krishnanushilanam, this word is used. Let's just say anukulyam is bhakti. Why add this word Krishnanushilanam? So, when only anukulyam is understood as bhakti, then just as in the statement, this king is going in the procession, or this king is going, Raja ayam gacchati. In this statement, the word king also makes us comprehend the presence of his retinue along with him. If you say the king is going by this road, it means the king is never walking alone. He is accompanied by his ministers and his servants and his retinue. Okay. So when the king is going, it is understood that some of his retinue are also going with him. So in the same way, when anukulya is said to be bhakti, when favorability is said to be bhakti, then it is understood that it is constant application in relation with Krishna. That will be implied. You did not say the word for it. You need not write the word for it in the shloka. Just by saying anukulyam is bhakti, it is understood that Krishna anushilanam is there. Anushilanam is understood. Just you say Krishna anukulyam, favorable to Krishna, then anushilanam will be understood. We need not mention it separately. Okay. Just as you need not mention that the retinue of the king is going along with the king. If you just say the king is going, it is assumed and understood that his retinue is also going, accompanying him. Okay. Any questions in this question that is asked here? Does one understand the argument? Yes. Okay. Then Jiva Goswami replies, Satyam, yes, you are right. What you have asked is correct. Anukulyam would make perfect sense. Krishna Anukulyam, if you say, favorable to Krishna, that itself would define bhakti and Anushilanam would be understood. That is right. Still, why does Rupa Goswami separately use the word Anushilanam, Tathapi? So he says, still, धात्वर्थ भेदानां स्पष्टा प्रतिपत्तिर्न स्यात् इति धात्वर्थ मात्र ग्रहणाय अनुशीलनं पदम् उपादीयते. That धात्वर्थ भेदानां स्पष्टा प्रतिपत्ति न स्यात्. One would not get a clear understanding of the various different meanings of the dhatu, of the verbal root. That the verbal root here he is speaking about is the word bhakti itself. The word bhakti is made from the dhatu, the verbal root bhaj, which the meaning is given in the dhatu patha as sevaya, constant application, frequenting something. Seva is also service. But this dhatu bhaj has many different meanings also, as it is well known in the Sanskrit grammar groups that धात्वर्थानां धातूनां अनेकार्थः. Dhatus have many meanings, not just one meaning that is listed in the dhatu part. The dhatus have many meanings. Bhaj dhatu also has many meanings theoretically. So bhakti, this word that is formed from the bhaj dhatu, one would not get a clear understanding of which meaning of bhaj you are referring to. So in order to clarify the meaning of the dhatu bhaj, he is using, Rupa Goswami has used the word anushilanam. Anushilanam padam upadiyate. Okay? In order to indicate that anushilanam means the dhatu itself, the meaning of the dhatu itself. That is constant application only. That's what anushila. That's what bhakti is, constant application in relation with Krishna. Yes. Okay. Any doubt? Someone has any question? अन्विति पदं च आनुकूल्ये जाते मुहुरेव शीलनं स्यात् इति अभिप्रायेण कृतम्. The word anushilanam means, so the word anu actually means, the word anushilanam means when there is anukulyam, when there is favorability for Krishna, when one is having favorability in his mind towards Krishna, then one would repeatedly engage in constant practice in regard to Krishna, with regard to Krishna. Okay. So anushilanam is used in order to make it clear that when there is favorability for Krishna in one's mind, then one would apply oneself constantly in relationship with Krishna. That is the idea. Tadetat Swarupa Lakshanam. This is the Swarupa Lakshana of Krishna Bhakti, of pure Bhakti. Okay. This is the main characteristic, the principal characteristic, the inherent characteristic of Krishna Bhakti or pure Bhakti. Okay. Any questions or doubts? उत्तमात्मसिद्ध्यर्थं तु तटस्थलक्षणेन विशेषणद्वयम्. However, in order to show that this is the highest form of bhakti, he is also giving secondary characteristic of bhakti, which are two characteristics. Tatastha lakshanena. So the following explanation will be about the marginal or the secondary characteristic of Krishna Bhakti. The words used are Anyabhilashita Shunyam and Jnana Karma Dhyanavritam. These are the two Visheshanas, the defining or the Visheshanas of Krishna Bhakti. Anyabhilashita Shunyam. He explains that first. Atra Anya iti Bhakti-ekabhilashena yuktam ityartha. Anyabhilashita Shunya means one has only the desire of bhakti, only the desire to favorably engage in constant application with regard to Krishna. That is one's only desire. There is no other desire in one's mind. That is what it means by anyabhilashita shunyam. Okay. Then he explains the next Visheshanam, next qualifying thing. Jnana karma dhyanavritam. Uncovered by jnana, karma, and so forth. Adi. Jnanam atra nirbheda brahmanusandhanam. न तो भजनीयत्वानुसंधानमपि तस्य avashyapekshaniyatvat. What is the jnanam that should not be covering bhakti? That jnanam here is the search for non-different Brahman, the Brahman that is not different from the Jivatma. Okay, aspiring to attain that Brahman, aspiring for understanding that Brahman and attaining that Brahman. Okay, aspiration for that non-dual Brahman or the non-differentiated Brahman is the knowledge here, is the jnanam here, which should not be covering one's bhakti. It means that one's pursuit of favorably engaging in constant application related to Krishna should not be covered by the pursuit of aspiring to attain the non-differentiated Brahman. Okay? That should not happen. If one wants to identify oneself with Brahman and become merged in that Brahman, in mukti, after liberation, then one is not practicing pure bhakti to Krishna. One is practicing mixed bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti, or you can say it is actually bhakti mishra jnana. Okay. So jnana should not cover one's bhakti. Also, this does not mean that one should not have any type of jnana. Jnana one should have. One should have knowledge of Krishna that is bhajaniya, that is worshipable for you. You have to cultivate knowledge of Krishna whom you are aspiring to worship and aspiring to attain love for him. You have to cultivate knowledge of that object of your worship. Okay, so that is not the jnana that is spoken of here in the shloka of Rupa Goswami. The only jnana which he is speaking of, which should not cover one's bhakti, is the aspiration to attain non-differentiated Brahman. That aspiration one should not have. Okay, but one should also aspire to cultivate knowledge of Krishna himself from the Shastras and hearing from the Guru. One should aspire to cultivate Krishna's, one's knowledge of Krishna, who is your worshipable object. Okay. It is very much required to do so because tasya avashyapekshaniyatvat. You have to cultivate knowledge of Krishna through the Shastras and the Guru and the Sadhus. You have to cultivate knowledge of Krishna. It is mandatory. Avashyapekshaniyatvat. So one that knowledge of Krishna is not the jnana that is spoken of here in this shloka, which one should avoid. One should avoid cultivating the knowledge of non-differentiated Brahman in the sense of aspiring to attain that. Okay, one should avoid that. Any questions? Any doubts someone has? Okay. So then the other thing he says, jnana karmadi anavritam. Jnana karma adi anavritam. Karma. Karma also should not cover one's bhakti.
So
Karma.
when he says jnana, when he says when you are the seeking for knowledge, the desire for knowledge should not cover bhakti. Is he saying knowledge is not required? You
No,
don't go seeking for knowledge?
no. He is saying that the word jnanam here means aspiring to attain the Brahman that is non-differentiated, means the all-pervasive Brahman that is without any form. So the absolute reality is Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and he himself also exists as Brahman, that is without any form, just consciousness without a form. That is also a feature of the absolute reality. Okay, so one should not aspire to be merged in that Brahman. One should not aspire to cultivate knowledge of one's oneness with that Brahman.
But isn't that what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita when he says at the end of the Kalpa, everything comes into me? He absorbs everybody, every Atma.
No, that's not what it means there. It means that everything becomes inactive and becomes dismantled at the end of the Kalpa. It enters into him, yes, but it does not become one with him. Everything, like jivas don't identify with him. They enter into him, that's right, but they do not identify with him. If they identify with him, then they become liberated. So that is what he's telling that you should avoid. You should not aspire for the mukti, which is of the form of merging into the impersonal Brahman, the Brahman which is not a person. You should aspire to cultivate service for the Brahman which is personal, that is Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Then the next is karma. Karma should not cover one's bhakti. So karma here means smrityadyuktam, nitya naimittikadi. The karma that is described in the smritis and the Vedas, etc., in the form of nitya karma, such as sandhya vandanam, naimittika karma, such as shraddha karma, and so forth. Kamya karma also, doing some putra kamyashti yaga to obtain a son. Kariri ishti, for obtaining rain in your area. Doing jyotishtoma yaga to attain swarga in the next life. So nitya karma, naimittika karma, adi and kanya karma should not be done with the pursuit of attaining those things. Okay. So one's pursuit of these karmas should not be covering one's bhakti. Okay. Karma here does not mean any action, because bhakti in and of itself is also action. It is constant application, constant practice in relation with Krishna. So natu bhajaniya paricharyadi. So it does not mean serving Krishna, who is the object of your worship. The act of serving Krishna and the act of remembering Krishna, the act of reciting his names, the act of going to his temple, bowing down to him, and all these acts of bhakti to Krishna, they are not what is meant here by the word karma. Karma here means the nitya karma, naimittika karma, kamya karma, instructed in the Vedas and the Smriti Shastras. Okay, because see, the activities of Krishna Bhakti are not what is meant by karma here, because they are anushilana rupatva, tad anushilana rupatva. They are of the nature of constant practice in relation with Krishna. So that is bhakti itself, that should not be avoided. That should always be done. Krishna Bhakti, engaging in Krishna's activities in relation to Krishna should always be done, always be carried out. But the activities that are nitya karmas in the Vedas, in the Smriti Shastras, they should be avoided. They should be, or they should not be done for attaining their results. Or you should not be afraid that if I do not do my Sandhya Vandanam, my bhakti for Krishna will be hampered. If you think that my not doing Sandhya Vandanam will cause a problem in my bhakti for Krishna, then your bhakti for Krishna becomes covered by karma. It should not be covered by karma. Your bhakti should not be covered by this conception of karma. You should not think that if you don't do Sandhya Vandanam, your bhakti for Krishna will be hampered in some way. You should not think that if I do not do Shraddha Karma, my bhakti for Krishna will be hampered in some way. If you think like that, then your bhakti is not pure bhakti. Your bhakti is mixed bhakti. Okay? It is karma mishra bhakti. It is not Shuddha bhakti. Okay? So let's be very clear about that. I will stress this because nowadays in the Gaudiya Vaishnava society, in some groups of Gaudiya Vaishnava devotees, there is the idea of various yajnas and homas, Agnihotra Homa, and all these homas are the devotees are taking up which they did not do earlier. So these activities are not a part of bhakti and they are not required for bhakti. If you think that they are required for bhakti, then your bhakti is mixed by karma and your bhakti is not pure Krishna bhakti. Okay? So be very careful about that. Also, karma mishra bhakti also implies worshipping other devatas. Okay? If the Shastras instruct you for worshipping Shiva for this thing, worshipping goddess Durga for that thing, worshipping Ganesha for that thing, worshipping Indra for this, that, worshipping Agni Deva for that, worshipping Varuna Deva for that, worshipping Subramanyam for that. And if you do those actions, worshipping the other devatas, your bhakti becomes covered by karma. Your bhakti does not remain pure bhakti. Okay? Worshipping other devatas is not pure Krishna bhakti. If you think that these other devatas are independent of Krishna, then your bhakti becomes covered by bhakti. Of course, worshipping other devatas is not totally against Krishna bhakti. If you think, while worshipping that deva, you think that this deva is the vibhuti of Krishna, or this Durga Devi is the material Shakti of Krishna, and Shiva is the Gunavatara of Krishna, and worship these devas in that mood, then your bhakti will not be covered. But if you think that these devas are independent of Krishna, then your bhakti is definitely covered by karma. Okay? So that should be very clear. Of course, Jiva Goswami doesn't mention about other devas, but it is included in this Adi Shabda, etc. I wanted to make this point because I am seeing many Krishna bhaktas involved in worshipping other devatas nowadays. So I had to stress that point. Any questions, any doubts?
You talk about karma, right? Action and Krishna Bhakti. It's in reading Bhagavatam Skanda 10. I think it is Adhyaya 8 or Adhyaya 9. Yashoda is playing with Krishna. She leaves him because there is milk boiling in the next room. Krishna gets upset and breaks her pot. So is Yashoda guilty of the karma of leaving Krishna, going to take care of the boiling milk?
No, she is not. And we'll discuss that point, that very specific point of Yashoda leaving Krishna for saving the milk. And Krishna became angry. So we'll discuss this point in the commentary of Vishwanatha Chakravarti, which will follow just later, just after this one.
Yeah, okay. No worries.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. Adi Shabdena Vairagya Yoga Sankhya Abhyasa Adaya. Very nice description by Jiva Goswami. The word Adi, Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam. One bhakti should not be covered by Jnana Karma and so on. So Adi, etc. By this, all other things are included, such as Vairagya, practicing detachment from the world, Yoga Abhyasa, practicing yogic meditation, Ashtanga Yoga, practicing that is also covering one's bhakti. Sankhya Abhyasa, practicing the Sankhya discipline, that is also covering one's Krishna bhakti. Aday, etc. He again says etc. means worshipping other devas and so on and so forth. Whatever else is there is included. So cultivating detachment from the world, practicing yogic meditation means Ashtanga Yoga, practicing the Sankhya discipline and other things are also included. These also should not be done. If they are done, they will cover your Krishna bhakti. Okay. So it does not mean that one should not be detached from the world. It does not mean that one should not meditate at all and so on. It means that it should not be one's aim. One's aim should not be to cultivate detachment from the world. One's aim should be to serve Krishna. And for that, if it is required that one give up one's attachment for various things in this world, one should do so. And there it becomes Krishna Bhakti, pure Krishna Bhakti itself. So detaching oneself from this world is not one's main pursuit. Okay, it is just a part of pleasing Krishna, giving up what is unfavorable for one's devotion to Krishna. There it becomes Krishna Bhakti. Okay. Meditating itself is not a problem, but thinking that this yogic Ashtanga Yoga meditation will help me to progress in my spiritual life, will help me progress in my Krishna Bhakti. If you think like that, then your bhakti is covered by yoga sadhana. If you think that following the Ashtanga Yoga path will help you cultivate Krishna Bhakti, then you are totally wrong, and your thinking like that covers your Krishna Bhakti. So one should be careful of those things. Okay. Any questions one has? Any doubts? अत्र कृष्णानुशीलनं कृष्णभक्तिरिति वक्तव्ये भगवच्छास्त्रेषु केवलस्य च भक्तिशब्दस्य तत्रैव विश्रान्ति इति अभिप्रायात् तथोक्तं तथैव हि अग्रिमवाक्यम् इति. So here in this shloka of Rupa Goswami, the word Krishnanushilanam, when it is understood as Krishna Bhakti only, then in the various shastras about Bhagavad Bhakti, about Krishna Bhakti, only the word Bhakti alone means that itself. So when it is said that constant practice in relation to Krishna is Bhakti, is Krishna Bhakti, then one should also understand that wherever in other shastras Krishna Bhakti is coming, this word Krishna Bhakti comes, there also it means Krishnanushilanam. Okay. With this in mind, Rupa Goswami has coined this word Krishnanushilanam. Okay. It means that wherever Bhakti comes in any shastra about Krishna Bhakti, so you should understand Bhakti as Krishnanushilanam, as constant application in relation with Krishna. That is what Bhakti should be understood as. Tathaiva hi agrima vakyam. With that in mind, Rupa Goswami gives the next shloka, which is the 12th shloka. Any questions or doubts? Okay. यथा क्रियाशब्देन धात्वर्थमात्रमुच्यते तथा अत्र अनुशीलनशब्देन अपि धात्वर्थमात्रमुच्यते. So he is skipping those portions which are same as Jiva Goswami's commentary. Just as the word kriya in Sanskritam means action itself. Okay, kru dhatu, when you apply a particular krut suffix, it becomes kriya. It means action only, doesn't mean anything else. Kru means karane, action. Dukrun karane. So you apply the some suffix, it becomes kriya. And kriya means also action only. In the same way, when you apply the word, apply the suffix lyut to anushil, anu is the prefix, shil is the dhatu. So when anushil are applied the lyut suffix, it becomes anushilanam. So anushilanam also means dhatvartha only. Only the dhatu meaning itself, that is constant application, constant practice. That's what anushilanam means. It does not mean anything else here in the shloka. Okay. Any questions here? Any doubts? So then he repeats Jiva Goswami's a few sentences. Dhat Dhatvarthascha dvividha. The meaning of the dhatu anushilanam is of two kinds. Pravritti nivritti atmaka. Positive application and negative, positive practice and negative practice. Tatra pravrityatmaka dhatvarthastu kaya vak manasiya tattascheshtarupa. So positive application in regard to Krishna means applying one's body, speech and mind, the activities of the body, speech and mind in relation to Krishna. That is positive. Nivrityatmaka dhatvarthascha pravritti bhinna priti vishadatmako manasas tattadbhava rupascha. So nivrityatmaka is, what is that? It is pravritti bhinna. So that here is a slightly different explanation from Jiva Goswami's commentary. Nivrityatmaka dhatvartha. The meaning of the dhatu anushil, that is of the sense of avoiding something, of stopping something. It means pravritti is nivritti is pravritti bhinna. That which is not pravritti is nivritti. That's how he understands nivritti as. The nivritti is that which is different from pravritti. The pravritti is the application of the body, speech and mind in relation with Krishna. Voluntary application of these things for Krishna is pravritti. Nivritti is that which is not pravritti, is different from pravritti. It means priti vishadatmaka manasas tattadbhava rupashcha. So nivritti here includes priti vishadatmaka manas. The level of feelings also includes in nivritti because it is not voluntary application. Okay, the feeling of love for Krishna and the feeling of sadness and separation for Krishna, separation from Krishna. So these mental feelings which are not voluntary, which arise in one's mind naturally, these bhavas, these emotions, these are included in nivritti artha of this anushil dhatu. So Jiva Goswami had classified into a different section, but Vishwanath Chakravarti includes in nivritti artha. Any questions or doubts? Okay. So that kind of feeling for Krishna, which is love for Krishna or separation from Krishna, sadness because of that, that is nivritti artha, which is anushilanam, nivritti artha of anushilanam, and that is vakshyamana rati premadi sthai bhava rupascha. So nivritti artha of the anushil dhatu is of the form of love for Krishna, emotions for Krishna, having a sthai bhava for Krishna. Sthai bhava, all these terms, rati, prema, sthai bhava, all these terms will come later on in this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So all these feelings for Krishna, Basically, they mean feeling for Krishna. They are included. They are what it means by Nivritti Artha Dhatu. Okay?
Yes, Maris.
Hi, but
Okay.
I just wanted to find out, are you guys putting a container on the truck as
I'm
well?
sorry, can you
No,
mute
you see the
yourself?
truck. I mean, video. Can you see the truck in the drawing? There's
Okay, I have muted Deepak Raiji. I think he was talking with someone else. Okay. Okay. And Jiva Goswami also says Nivritti Artha, which is Pravritti Bhinna, which is different from voluntary action of the body, speech, and mind. That also includes stopping the actions that are unfavorable for Krishna Bhakti. सेवानामापराधानाम् उद्भावभावकारिता इत्यादि वचनव्यञ्जित सेवानामापराधाद्यभावरूपश्च. So, nivritti of the nivritti meaning of anushilanam also includes avoiding sevaparadha, namaparadha, and other such things. Avoiding offenses in serving Krishna, avoiding offenses to the names of Krishna, which are the list of offenses is given in various shastras. One should avoid these offenses. One should be devoid of these offenses. So being devoid of these offenses, cultivating avoidance of these offenses is also a part of anushilanam in relation with Krishna. One should also practice avoiding offenses in relation with Krishna. One should also avoid displeasing Krishna. One should practice avoiding displeasing Krishna by one's actions and mental actions and so forth. Okay. So seva nama paradhanam udbhav abhavakarita. One should avoid the rising of these offenses for the names of Krishna, for the service of Krishna. Ityadi vachana vyamjita. Rupa Goswami will state the various seva aparadas and nama aparadas later on. So, one should practice cultivating avoidance of these offenses in relation with Krishna, with his name, with his service, and so forth. Okay, any doubts or questions here? Okay.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes,
Can we,
I can hear.
okay, is the classes recorded? Is there a possibility to listen to this class again?
Yes, it is being recorded and the recording is being uploaded on YouTube. The link for the recordings is pinned to the WhatsApp group of our Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu classes.
Okay,
So,
great.
are you on the WhatsApp group, Manuji?
Me no, but my wife.
Yeah, she is there. So you can just ask her and she will give you the link.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone else has the questions? All right. So we can end our class here for today and we'll meet next week, Wednesday. Thank you all so much for participating in the class today. Hare
Sri
Krishna.
Krishna Namastu. Thank you, Parasji. It's very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.